Thank you again, my friends, for joining me on another Let's Talk with the Doc. I'm excited to be here this evening. As I said, as you may have seen the flyer, and you know, this is a special edition of Let's Talk with the Doc. Normally, I'm here on Wednesday, not on Thursday, but this one warrants me being here. And as you notice, you may be curious, why am I here? If you didn't see the flyer, I'm here because we have lost a special man to all of us on this program and to many who will join and to many who don't even know that we're having this program will eventually hear about it. So we have a special edition of a program in tribute, reflecting on and celebrating the birthday of Bishop Earl W. McKay. And you will hear a lot about that man tonight from these voices that are here with me. So when I come back, I will talk to them. I have with me Dr. Casimir, Dr. What's the first name again?
Steve.
Oops, Dr. Steve Casimir. I'm sorry about that. I have Eleanor McKay, that's daughter. I have Bishop Linval Hendricks, and that's a whole good friend. And I have Minister Vivian Murray, and she has been connected in the theological aspect of his ministry, teaching, and also brother sister relationship. So when I come back, I will be talking to these wonderful people. Stay tuned, and we come right back.
ORB Ministry presents Let's Talk with the Doc. Grace Without Borders podcast. A thought for you. Ask Pastor. And a whole lot more. You never know what's next or who will join the conversation.
All right, so I don't know where to start or who to start with, but I just want to welcome everybody, all of the special guests, those of us who are guests, and tonight I am a guest on my own program because we are here in support of Eleanor and her mother and brother and the rest of the McKay's family as we join in our little contribution in celebrating his memory and his birthday, which he would be celebrating today. All right, so welcome, and let me begin with the senior man. I believe, based on just looking on his beard and his hair, it tells me I'm looking at the senior man among us. So Bishop Hendricks, welcome to Let's Talk with the Doc on this special edition. Good to have you.
Thank you, Doc, Bishop Beckford. I never dream I would come to the years when I would be the old man.
Ah, so
All my life in every circle that I'm in, I was the youth.
the youth, right?
As we're talking about Bishop McKay, this is the day that I would say happy birthday. And, this is a special day. And my early years in memory of him, talking about in the 70s. It was in the 70s that I had the privilege of meeting Bishop McKay and Lady Ella McKay. And the city was Albany, New York. And this is around 75, 76, those early years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my first memories of him, of the family, uh, it was Pastor Richard Joseph. Um, that was our pastor at that time. And the state overseer then was Bishop E.L. Jones. So it was in the 70s
Mm-hmm.
that I had the privilege of meeting Bishop McKay.
All right, we're gonna hold that. We're gonna come back because I know you have a lot to say about this man. So we're gonna take it in increments. We're gonna make sure we accommodate Dr. Casimir, so we hold him a little bit longer so we can get his story, and then we will see how far we go with it. Sister Vivian, good to have you, and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you know about the man, and then we come back and tap into it. Just like brief, give me a little synopsis of it.
All right. So my name is Vivian Murray. I am one of the ministers at the South Ozone Park Church. Bishop Hendricks right here is my senior pastor. I came in at the tail end while he started at the front part. I was blessed to be at the tail end of his ministry because up to this moment, I am still processing what happened because Bishop is a part of a ministry that started in Queens on Long Island 2012, the Acts Bible Institute. And that ministry came out of the vision of one of his partners in ministry, Bishop Carlton Chambers. And that's how I got involved because I am on the board at the Queens on Long Island Church of God of Prophecy. And it was our task to bring into that formation the cry of the hearts of young adults all across our district who wanted something more than just Sunday morning preaching and Bible study. They wanted in-depth study. And so the beautiful thing about Bishop McKay is that Bishop Chambers, the district overseer for Queens and Long Island, Bishop Earl McKay, district overseer for Bronx and Manhattan and Bermuda, it was Bishop Chambers' vision. But look at his partner over the other side of the bridge, not seeing it as being something that he had to compete with, but he just came along, bought into the vision. And today, 9 years after that, Bishop McKay has been almost at a lecturer at every single semester of the Acts Bible Institute. No competition there. Just pouring into young lives and mentoring and nurturing and just enjoying that. So I'll have a little more to say at the end. But for right now, I'm telling you, on the behalf of the Acts Bible School, we really miss him up to this moment. Up to this time, the school is still reeling because he's on the schedule to teach in March. So that's really tough for us right now. It's a tough going through at the school right now because Bishop McKay is just like a pillar or a cornerstone at the Acts Bible Institute.
I can imagine, and we're gonna thank you, Sister Vivian. I'm going to Dr. Steve Casimir and give you a little synopsis of what you. Cause we're gonna get the body of it. Give us the introduction, and then we get the body and the conclusion somewhere down the road.
Dr. Bishop McKay and I, we are on a totally different level because I am a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, and he is a Church of God of Prophecy minister. But never once did we ever talk about religious beliefs and religion. Bishop McKay was my brother. When I say he was my brother, I mean he was my brother. We talked about everything, family, friends. We traveled together. We went all over the place, all over the world, Israel, many other places. We would room together sometimes. If Bishop McKay found out something somewhere that could benefit his congregation, he would call me and tell me about it. And I was at 169th and the concourse for 10 years, and he was on 165th. Is that what it is, Eleanor? He's on 165th. So every now and then we will just drop into each other's services. He would preach over at my church. I would preach at his church. But every now and then on a Saturday, he would just slip into the back and enjoy the service. And I would slip into his back on a Sunday if I had something to do and enjoy his service. So Eleanor will tell you I'd be preaching there 2 or 3 times a year, and we just had a wonderful time. Someone asked me what faith I was and what faith Bishop McKay was. I said we both have the faith of Jesus.
Mhm.
And that is more important than religious denominations. We didn't talk about that. We had so much else. We talked about so much in the last little while before his death. Plans we had, things we wanted to do, places we wanted to go, things we wanted to accomplish. When he had, I think he was doing a food bank or something that the government was giving him some funds, the city. He called me. I had to drive up there and sit down and go through. And he said to me, you could give me your blessing on this one? I said, sure. Next thing, it was a big thing. It was really good. Bishop McKay was one of the meekest men that I know. Now, some people it always does happen that some folk who are not informed may take meekness for weakness. But there was no weakness in Bishop McKay. He was not weak. I've seen him standing up. We in 23 years ago, he introduced me when I came to the South Bronx. He introduced me to a number of places and things. And one of the things that I joined, and he was already there, was the Police Clergy Coalition in the South Bronx, the 44th Precinct. 2 years later, I served as the president, and he served as the vice president, the first vice president. And we just had a wonderful time doing things, going places, helping out in the community, having lunch together. No, Bishop McKay was a special person. He was a special person. And you asked me just to give you an introduction. So I
Right.
think that is good for an introduction.
A good,
Yeah, I think that's good for
okay,
introduction.
a good intro, a good intro. Listen, I'm gonna get to it. So let's get Eleanor before I come with mine. I don't know what I'm gonna say. How do I introduce Eleanor? What do I allow Eleanor to say? But I'm gonna leave you to say what you want to say in the beginning of this special tribute to your dad. The rest of us, as I said in the so-called green room, that we're here as guests to support you and your family in this time, and to remind you of friends, really good friends, long-term friends and laborers, fellow laborers that has known your father in the way that we have known him in different levels, but nobody in this setting can relate to him in the way you can. So give us the synopsis of your moment, because we know you have a lot to say and a lot to ask you about your dad.
Well, I met my father at inception with my mother, and and birth to lighten the mood. But I do want to say thank you for even letting me know that he was going to be on the show and wanted to move forward with this. I didn't know how I felt at the time because it's still really fresh, but I know it was something that he would enjoy. So putting myself out there as I always did in my tenure as his daughter while he was here. Whatever he asks, I put myself aside and do what I have to do. And I appreciate you all for answering the call and partaking. I know for a fact that he cherished each and every one of you, dearly. And I couldn't do this alone. It would have been too much. So I appreciate each and every one of you being here. And that is really my introduction.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for reminding me. And let me just say this to my friends, to those who are listening. First of all, thank you for joining us, whereby whatever means you join, and it's a good time to hit your share button on Facebook or YouTube or even Twitter, wherever you are, and share this, because everybody who knew Bishop McKay need to be a part of this, at least to hear this conversation. This is not a funeral service where somebody passed something and it's gone. We're having a conversation, and this is going to be here, a more intimate connection with the man that you would have heard in the order of a funeral setting. And as you said, Eleanor, strangely, I think it was in September. It may have been September, or I think maybe September, when I had a program, and when a lot of people were talking about COVID being the vaccine being the mark of the beast, and everything that pops up, there's some theory of the mark of the beast, especially people who have no clue what biblical terms meant, and so it was going around that this vaccine is the mark of the beast. So I wanted to have one of my programs like this on a Wednesday night, and I was kind of scanning my mind, who could I find to join me on the program, and eventually Bishop Mackey is one of the person that I thought would be a good source in the discussion, and so he was part of that program. And when the program was finished, I actually said to him, offline, when I closed, I said, Bishop, you know what? Maybe I should talk to you personally about your own story, because on Let's Talk with the Doc, I like to talk to people about their stories, what their journey has been. And so he said, yeah, maybe we could do that, and I said, give me a date when we could do that. And he said, let's do December, let's do January 15, December 15, right? He died in December, right? So he said, let's do December 15. I booked it in my calendar. He booked it in his calendar, and we were anticipating December 15 for him to be on my program. When he got sick, I started to worry. When it wasn't getting better, I started to worry more about him. And then it happened that he went home to be with the Lord on December 12th, 3 days before being on my program. Now, my program is not that significant, as it relates to the man going home to be with the Lord, but just the fact that he was supposed to be on my program, and that's why I thought maybe we could still talk about him on, and to remember and reflect on him. And so I appreciate you even wanting to do something and to join us in this setting, and to talk about him. And then when you said his birthday was today, I said, man, whatever it takes, even if it was Sunday evening, I would have to do a special program to accommodate my friend, my brother, who we have worked so long. We have worked on committees together. He was a chairman for the committee that we've been on in the region for maybe about 16 years that he has been the chairman, and have been a member of that committee. And here is one thing that I want not to forget before I turn it over to the rest of you guys. Strangely, one Tuesday a couple years ago, it was 2018. I got a call. I'm going to my office. I got a call, and I saw my phone. I said it was Earl McKay. I responded and said, Bishop McKay, wow, you really called me. What about this call? And then he said to me, there were some guys planned to come to my local church, from an organization in Far Rockaway, a church that is a chaplaincy ministry. And he said, I was scanning through my mind, who I could invite, because there's certain requirements even to get into the ministry, into the chaplaincy ministry, and even get into the residency. And I said, thank you, Bishop. I said, I certainly will show up. I went to the meeting. I was the only person at the meeting with a unit in clinical pastoral education, the only person who had one unit. And because I had one unit, it would have qualified me to do a residency to get three more units so I could have 4 units in CPE. As a result of him just out of the blue calling me, I entered the program, I got into the residency, and I got my 4 units of CPE as a result of my friend just thinking about me. I'm not from Bronx and Manhattan. I am from Westchester. But that's the brotherhood connection and the friendship and the relationship that the brother looks out for others.
Mhm.
The brother looks out for others. And he scanned in his mind and he said, maybe I should give Beckford a call. And he called me. And as a result of that, I graduated in my 4 units. So I wanted to put that tribute in his funeral. And unfortunately, with the whole COVID and everything that happened, I didn't get a chance to do it. But I really wanted to put that in, that you could know and others could know that he was a contributing factor in me getting into the residency because he thought of me. I would have known nothing about the program had he not given me a call. So I wanted to get that in there. So I want to thank him even behind his back. And I thanked him before, but I'm sure I would have gotten more opportunity to share with him because he was also thinking about getting a program started at his church where they could get people to begin to get their first unit into chaplaincy ministry. So that was part of his vision, projected vision, which never materialized under his ministry. But I hope that somewhere down the road, that would still become something that part of his dream becomes a reality. All right, thank you. That was
Dr. Beckford,
yes, sir.
I probably could tell you that I was with him, helping him with the CPE unit,
Oh,
bringing some of the folk who were qualified for that. We had several meetings. He was willing also to do it because I had done some CPE chaplaincy also. Um, but I just wanted to add a little something to what you said. He was always looking out for others, especially his pastors. When Bishop Ball had a fire, I think at his church some time ago, and he needed a place to worship the following Sunday, I was at a church in the Bronx, the Shalom Church, White Plains area, White Plains Road and Burke. And he came to me one Saturday evening and he said, I have a friend who needs to worship tomorrow. I said, well, our church is available tomorrow. He said, didn't you need to talk to the board or anything? I said, yeah, I'll talk to the board when the board meets. But for now, tell him he has a place to worship tomorrow. And that was what was important. Same thing happened with the one of your pastors at the Philadelphia church where he's now worshiping. But I was always his go-to persons when he needed a church to help out because something was wrong, something happened. The last time we were together working on a church for a group to worship was a little Spanish group somewhere in the South Bronx,
Yes.
and we worked through the process. But that's him. He was always looking out for everybody. He was always looking out. And if he needed a church, he knew that since we worshipped on Saturdays and the church was closed on Sundays, they were wide open. There were a number of them he could choose from. I
that was a
told him,
prime, that's a
pick
prime
anyone and
combination.
just let me know which one he wanted.
That's a prime combination there, right? Yeah, when you're out, I could come in. That
That's
couldn't
right.
answer better, right?
Yeah, that's how the Lord works sometimes.
And as you say that, I must also say that one of the reasons I would imagine that you had the voice in that is because the person in charge of the chaplaincy ministry was also an Adventist guy.
Yes, he was.
So that gives you the kind of connection to those people. Yes. All right. So thank you so much. He was just somebody who looked out for other. As I said in my little thought, one of the most selfless persons that you come across, one who does not seek to be recognized or to be patted on the shoulder, but he's always looking out to see where there are opportunities that he could help somebody to achieve something or to become better at what they do or just to make their lives better. All right, Bishop, we're swinging around the corner. Bishop Hendricks, break
Yes,
it out again.
yes.
It's you. It's your time.
Okay. Well, as
We're
I
taking, we're
was
taking it.
thinking,
We're taking it in increments. We're taking it in increments,
okay,
taking it proportion. So give me piece, and I go back and get another piece here and there and then we come back
okay.
and are going to give
Well,
you also.
the person that Bishop McKay was, he worked well with leadership. Um, the leader at the time, our state, at the time we used the term state overseer, Bishop E.L. Jones, back in the 70s, um, in um, the church at Bushwick was like headquarter church. That's where we would have convention and things of that nature. Bishop E.L. Jones' vision was to centralize the church government to be in Albany, New York, more or less to bring conventions to Albany. Albany is more centralized. He had a vision of reaching all of New York.
Mhm.
And Bishop McKay and Lady McKay, they were over the youth ministry. And so they moved to Albany, New York. Um, and it was there that I met him and his wife. And so they had a hand in my early years because I had just gotten saved a couple of years before that. And that's how I get to meet Bishop McKay. And as you stated before, and everybody know, he was a humble man, and but he have his way to communicate with us, and he communicated with me. So that was my home church, and he was able to minister there, um, as I stated before, under Bishop E.L. Jones, and the pastor, local pastor, was Richard Joseph. So we had a good relationship at that outset, at the beginning of my walk with God. Um, he was later appointed as pastor, um, and I'm fast forwarding. He was sent to Bermuda, and he served there as pastor. So those were more or less the missing years. But then we reconnected when I was sent to pastor the church in Hempstead, New York, Jerusalem Avenue. He was a pastor there. So that's where we connected again. And from there, our relationship just continued to grow. He was the person that I would go to share certain things with. If I have certain questions, he was the person that I would ask. Um, and this mostly relating to scripture because he was a man of the book. He was an avid reader. I respect him to the max, his knowledge, his wisdom, and just the way in which he communicate that knowledge. So yes, he had a hand in my ministry.
Amen. Amen. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. And today you're still rejoicing in that. You know, uh, Eleanor, I know you met him. You said you met him at conception, right? And that was a really nice way to put it. That's a really nice way to put it. It's like what the Lord, what Jesus, what the Lord said. It's a Jeremiah, right? I think he said, "Before you were conceived in your mother's womb, I know you. I know you from before then." So yeah, from the beginning. So tell us something. The rest of us who are outsiders who have become connected to the man and I've seen him in his adult age, doing things away from, from home, doing ministry things, building relationships. Tell us in your discovery of your dad when it became more than the conception, birth, and discovery. Tell us what you can recall, if anything, as far back as you can go, in a moment of discovery when I could say that's my dad.
Uh
I don't know. There's so many things. I'll speak more to trying to answer that. I'll speak more on when you say the beginning, or I'm thinking the beginning. As a child, I remembered him not only, of course, ministering, serving, but he took time working on his diction. I remember him going to school, and he was born in Jamaica, and he used to look in the mirror, when you brush your teeth, he would practice, words, sounds. I mean, he put a lot of detail in everything, and we, as kids thought it was hilarious, but he didn't want anyone to really know where he came from and judge him. Being new to America, trying to,
Mhm.
go to school, he wanted to make sure he can, I would say we say turn it on and off.
Yeah,
um, so
yeah,
you
yeah.
can relate to everyone. So as a child, I'm like, what is he doing? But he was big on diction, vocabulary. He took education serious. It wasn't just, I know a lot of people know him for being an avid reader, but he really lived and breathed education for himself, and everything that he learned, he poured in to people, the gospel. It was very consistent. There's not a time in my life where um, I don't remember him improving himself by any means necessary.
Mm.
Even jumping to later years, right before COVID, he's saying he was teaching at the Ex Bible Institute, and he's like, I need to go back to school and take a class to make sure I'm writing properly. And I'm like, he loves to write a letter. So I'm like, I think you had many years of practice. I don't think you need someone to test your skill at this point. And he still signed up for a class, and the teacher, was like, I think you're okay. So, he backed up. But um, the moral of that story is from the beginning, he's always been dedicated, committed to learning, to studying the word. He put his all into it. I can sit here as a child watching him at home, watching him, out in the store, watching him in ministry, travel, meeting others. He's always been consistent. There wasn't a difference at home and at church, and that's as far back as I can remember. I was laughing. I told Bishop Hendricks, and I was telling my god brothers and sisters that we weren't born to this. We were bred. We were, like, this is all we know, because it was lived out every day. I had a living example, and I can say that wholeheartedly. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, all right. I mean, and I know, if you begin to go back into your reservoir of memories, I'm sure there will be unimaginary amount of memories that you'll have about your father, especially the impact that he has had, and I imagine at home and abroad, because you don't just pop up to be something abroad that you're not really at home. And then some people are good at faking things, but you can know, you can discover pretenders. You can discover pretenders sometimes pretty easily. Um, um, looking back at your growing up with your brother and your father, were you more attached to daddy than your brother was? Were you daddy's girl and he was mama's boy, or you were both daddy's boy and girl, or what was the dynamic in that moment that you can say, okay?
Well, I think everyone, if you've been around long enough, I am definitely a daddy's girl, but I am very much like my mother. So, so I am a daddy's girl. When we were younger, and we were pastoring in Albany, I remember being of age, barely can talk, and then we moved to Long Island. He would be at church, and I would call him to say, "Come get me, mommy's gonna kill me. Come get me." You know, so um, he was my saving grace. I knew his schedule when he was going to church, even when we went to the Bronx and I was in high school. I knew his schedule when he was going to meetings, and I would call him just to get him to drop off, lunch, whatever I wanted before he had to jump on the highway. Like, I'm a daddy's girl, and I was in his business. I stayed under him. I know all his passwords. I know what lesson he's teaching. Um, I've highlighted the minister guys when he's doing training. Am actually the ones that went through the booklets, so I can teach the class. That's not. I don't want to teach, but I actually know all the material. Um, yeah, I'm that child. I wrote him little notes and said, when you get older, I'm going to take care of you. I stuck that in his head. That was our relationship. My brother had a different relationship, but I definitely was the daddy's girl. And no matter how much he studied, no matter how much he needed, time to do whatever, I never respected that in certain instances. As a child, I was always in the mix, and I was his protector in a way. If people were outside of the office wanted to meet with him and I felt he needed to eat, I would tell them he can't meet. He needs to eat first. I was that person. If my mother went away to Antigua, I made sure I was at church to
Wow.
make sure he was okay. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you were like his little guarding angel. Were you among like some kids who just listen to church people, keep their ears open to see if church people saying anything about their dad so they could love them or hate them or respond to it?
Not really. I always had an open ear. But I mean, he didn't really focus on those things. But I definitely, paid attention to all, who was for you and who wasn't. I was just that child. And just, in general, not just church, just his business, whatever's going on. If it's the house, if it's my mother, I was the one that paid attention to the details and made sure they knew what the laws of the land were, or, I was always putting my input
Wow.
in wherever needed.
Wow. So you were fully in the mix.
In the mix.
So I imagine I'm just imagining on the opposite side, what would he have done if you were not around?
Well, I mean, my brother is adored by him. Acts Bible Institute, knows my brother very well. He actually went to seminary and graduated. He helped, co-teach. He's actually a minister or lay minister at the church.
Good for him.
However, I am, as Caribbean will say, people would say, the last draining. I'm the last, and I hold a special part. And as my mother would say, she was okay with the son. She came from a big family, but he wanted to have a daughter. So, I'm here because it's what he wanted. He needed me in his life.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. And if you could respond to that, I wish I knew that and had him on my program, to really plug him myself, and plow him like Samson said, if you didn't plow my heifer, you would know where my strength was. So, all right. So thank you. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going back to Dr. Cassimy, because he said something to me about going to the precinct. Dr. Casimir, I want to hear from you about that story that you were telling me about. Um, you know, and I didn't hear the whole detail, but you can refresh me on you going, and if McKay wasn't there, you would pick up for him, and if you weren't there, we'd pick up for you. And what happened the last time when you went and he wasn't around?
Yeah, I was telling Eleanor the same story this past week, but every January we receive these PBA cards from the 44th precinct. I would get a number of them. He would get a number of them. Whichever one of us went to the precinct first, we would collect for the other person. And this past Friday was the time to have gone for them. And on my way there, and when I left, it was a little nostalgic, because this is what I almost said to her, do you have Bishop McKay's also? And I caught myself kind of in the act with Carmen Tejeda, who brought the card down for me. But this is what we did for each other. We would, if there was something happening, there was a tight brotherhood in the South Bronx with the clergy, very tight. There are a number of churches on 169th, and he was just up the road. And so we fellowshiped together. We looked out for each other. And going there on Friday, going to the precinct on Friday to collect my cards. The other thing to do was to collect for him and
Mhm.
either take it to his church if he was there, drop it in the mailbox, or keep it for him. And this time I had to think and to remember that I was not collecting anything for Bishop McKay, my friend, because he's not there. So stay focused, Steve, and don't say anything that would be inappropriate. Just make sure you ask for your cards. Ask for Carmen and just ask for your cards and not for. But then what happened was Carmen came down, Detective Carmen Tejeda came down. And the first thing she said to me was,
Yeah.
Rev Cassamy, Bishop McKay, we were such a good team together, and then the tears came into her eyes, and it was a little sad time for the two of us as we remembered the fact that on a day like this, the three of us would be in some kind of conversation as far as the PBA cards are concerned for ourselves and for some of the leaders in the church. But Doc, can I say one thing about his kindness?
Yeah, because I know that you're strapped on time too, and I just
Yeah,
realized that
but I'll go late to talk about his kindness.
go. Okay, all
Uh,
right.
um, we were having when I was in the Grand Concourse Church, we were having it was a big event, and the gas in the kitchen of our fellowship hall, something happened, and while they were cooking and preparing, and I picked up the phone and I called Bishop McKay to see what he can do to help us out. Maybe we could use his kitchen to cook and then transport the food. And he would not have it. He would not have it. He said, "Come now, we're going to prepare the kitchen and we're going to prepare the fellowship hall for you. You're not transporting food anywhere back and forth. This is your church. Your church is my church. We are brothers in Christ Jesus." And so he had people come over that morning after service. I think our banquet was about 5 o'clock. And they cleaned up that place after lunch. They decorated it. And we had a wonderful time over there. So much so that a couple of young people, when they had functions, they didn't even bother to stay at our church. They booked Bishop McKay's church for their fellowship, and it was wonderful. I mean, I knew that fellowship hall as though I knew my fellowship hall at Grand Concourse, and there was just that kindness about him. Kindness was in his pores. It just exuded from him,
Mm.
and you just couldn't help but love the man just as a person because he was such a fine Christian gentleman.
Mm.
And I think like me, I think this is one place that we were on the same page on. Our practice of being like Jesus, our Christianity was more than our denomination. Denomination was second, being like Jesus and being Christ-like was number one for us. And I think that's why we gelled so well together. And he left a little empty spot in my heart. Lady McKay and Eleanor, they're kind of filling it as I get to know them a little more. But he was just one of the best men. I'm saying this with all
Amen.
the strength in me. Bishop McKay was one of the best men I knew
Wow.
in my life.
Wow.
We were on a totally different level to the people in his congregation and the denomination. We didn't do that. We did this. That's what we did. We were brothers in Christ.
So so
And
so so, so I'm listening to you. It because sometimes we become too religious and too affiliatedly conscious. Until we cause some things that are not as important as a relationship to hinder relationship, because what we are focusing on is the lesser matter. And I'm hearing you expressing, and I almost have chills just to hear the expression as you said it. And I don't know if it could be said better than you said it a while ago. What you found in the man. And I didn't ask you. I know you have to go, Doc, but uh, where did this begin? Because I never get the beginning of this. Where did it begin? How did you run into him, or he ran into you?
I moved to the South Bronx in 1998, January 1998, from Toronto, Canada, to pastor the Grand Concourse Seventh-day Adventist Church. And one of the first clergymen I met was Bishop McKay, when we were invited to the 44th precinct, just down the road from me, where we had the Police Clergy Coalition. Okay. I think about 300 or 400 police officers and about 80 so of us pastors. And we met, portions of the police group met with the clergy once a month. We had meetings. Inspector Clark was the one at the time, and we were building relationships in the South Bronx. And Bishop McKay and I, we just gelled together after a few months. And before you know it, we were friends, and that friendship. And I knew where you were going a little earlier on, but I will go a little further. And because I've said it, maybe Eleanor's Lady McKay probably heard me say it in my church and also in their church. I've said it in many other places. But I was closer to Bishop McKay, much closer to Bishop McKay, and than many of my Seventh-day Adventist clergy brothers and sisters. Not because of anything; it's just the relationship we had.
We thought you were coming to prophecy. We thought you were going to convert.
Well, we joked about that. We joked about that on many occasions, because I used to say, when he came to my church, if Bishop McKay was not a Church of God of Prophecy minister, he would have been a Seventh-day Adventist minister. And when I went to his church, he would say, if Casimir was not a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, he would have been a Church of God of Prophecy pastor. And I often say yes to that. Matter of fact, he used to sometimes say that I was one of his associates over a Church of God of Prophecy, to which I always raise my hand. Yes, it's true.
That is as good as relationships get, how it sounds to me. That bonding, that camaraderie, that separation from our religious affiliation. I remember, and I'm just going to tie this into the importance of relationship. I remember in my chaplaincy, I went I was sent to minister to a guy in the bed in the hospital, and he was he was Pentecostal, but now he was in transition into Muslim. So he had this Quran that he was reading in there, and I walked in, and there's a perception that a chaplain comes to proselytize you, or to pray with you, or to get you to believe or change your belief. And so when I walked into the room, he was kind of put up his guard, and want to resist, and asking me about putting up his defense that he's a Muslim, and all that kind of stuff. And I said to him, why don't we just be human first? Let's be human first, and not put religion in it. Because if we become human first, then we feel the same things, we have the same pain, we have the same challenges, and then we can communicate together. And that broke him. He said, I've never heard it like that. And he just put down his religious defenses, and I was able to minister to him. So if we can put away our religious affiliation and just be human brothers and sisters together, we can change our world just by friendship. And I just hear that, and I know sometimes you feel like you're a Pentecostal guy just by being around him, and I know sometimes you feel like an Adventist by just being around you. But that's what brotherhood says. But that's what you get out of brotherhood. Well said.
Thank you so much, Dr. Casimir. We appreciate you.
I had it. It's just pouring forth from me. This is what we had. We didn't a lot of people saw us. They loved what they saw. Our churches loved what they saw with two pastors from two different denominations. But as I said, and I'll always say, our Christianity was first. Our being like Jesus was first. Our denomination was second. So I tell people all the time, I am not a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I am a Christian who's a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes.
And for McKay, McKay is a Christian who was a Church of God of Prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we cannot understand that we are like Christ before we are some religion, we are missing the boat.
Amen.
We're missing the boat. We are Christians first. We are like Jesus. We are like Christ first. And then we may be following a certain religious tradition, but we are like Jesus first.
And if we are not, that's what the aim ought to be.
If we're not, we're missing the boat.
We're missing it.
And the airplane and the train. Missing all of
missing
them.
everything.
All of them.
I am so with you on that. I am with you on that. I'm sorry that you have to leave us. I'm sorry that you have other engagement.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd stay till 9 and they'll do it without me for the next 7 minutes.
Oh, so,
Yeah.
so we're taking it in 15 minutes increments, right?
I mean,
that's what Brotherhood does. We're taking in 15-minute increments.
For Bishop McKay, I'll be late. It's all right.
All right, good. Because this might be the final, and it's not going to be the final, but one of the biggest opportunities to really say publicly on this platform and it's going down on the record for as long as time lasts, because this is going to stay on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter, that somebody will find it somewhere down the road, and it might just change somebody else's perception of how we build relationship, even when we are different. We have different religious beliefs in terms of our worship. So that is wonderful. All right, so we're gonna go back to we're gonna take briefly, sister Vivian. Let's hear something from you.
Oh yes,
About the X thing that the bishop, because he got a plaque or
yes.
something about, from the Acts, because he's been such a consistent contributor to it. So tell us a little bit more about his ministry in that.
What I want to do first and foremost is to really, really say a very special thanks to Eleanor and to Lady McKay for releasing Bishop on those Saturdays, because our class starts at 9 a.m. in the morning, and Bishop is out of that house every Saturday so early. All those special times that most people would just guard for their family. We just recognize his sacrifice to the school. He came from across the bridge, as we always say in the school. Bishop came from across the bridge in the Bronx, and he's always on time, and he's always there, and he's consistently there. So I want to say, on the behalf of the school publicly, thank you for releasing your father and your husband. And the great thing about Bishop is that he's always available. He has a schedule. If something comes up, and that's why I really love Christopher. I really love his son, Christopher, because if something comes up, Bishop is not going to say cancel for the day. Bishop is going to call Christopher and say, Sister Vivian, Christopher is taking my place because he's in seminary and he needs this exposure. So, Chris, thank you so much wherever you are. You just held up Daddy's hand. The last time you did that was when we had our seminary, our training, our ministers conference in Hartford. And we were contemplating, should we cancel class, because so many of the ministers were a part of it. And Bishop said, no, Christopher will stand in the gap. And so that's how it has been. So I want to say his dedication. Eleanor, you mentioned something that I really want to endorse, and it is its passion for education. Bishop is a lifelong student. His library at the church will attest to that. And I don't know where he lives, but I can just imagine that at his home he has tons of books.
You are correct.
I share this with you. Bishop is teaching, right? And he's there teaching, and if something bowl him over, this is his normal posture. He would do like this. I'll get back to you on that. And believe you me, he's getting back to you. The students who are on this watching can attest to that. If there's something that he doesn't understand, some people just make up something and try to make you feel good. No, Bishop wants to make sure you have it correctly by the book. And so if he's not sure of it, he'll say, put a hole on it and I'll get back to you. I'm telling you, Bishop McKay, I look at his dedication. He went, the last thing that I'm still musing over and say, what a man, so dedicated, is the fact that he was on to teach in October, just October, gone. And then he had this engagement in Jamaica. Now, some people would say, okay, find a substitute. Not Bishop. You know what Bishop McKay did? Bishop McKay went to Jamaica on his vacation. At 7 o'clock, Bishop was logged into school from his hotel room, teaching for nearly 2 hours. I'm saying, Bishop, my God, he could have called Christopher, but he was so much, he was so much into this thing with the students. He loved it. He loved to see how they interact with him. And then he had this permanent smile. I can't even do it. I wish I had somebody to show that little smile that you have there behind you.
See his picture. Yeah, he retained the
smile. It looks like that to the rabbit cheek, and it just cheers you up. I'm going to share this last joke with you, which is a private joke. Bishop, every time he calls me Saint Vivian, and I think Saint Vivian was just a title to keep me in my place. I said, Bishop, I'm no saint. So this is how I burst this bubble. I was so sick one Saturday morning. Cock your ears if you don't understand what I'm saying. Cover your ears for this one. Listen, I was very sick one Saturday morning. Bishop, of course, was in his place. I was burning up with fever. And I'm like, I can't miss Bishop's class today because Bishop is always bringing these stories and these things in his experience that he has lived in the Bronx. Programs where when it gets too hot, the city will allow I don't know how that program goes. Somebody will have to explain it to me. Where everybody comes off the street, the homeless will come into the church to get the cooling, the air condition. And then you'll connect that to the least of these and how it's important for us to minister and to remember the least of these and how important it was to make sure that we are balancing as we do ministry on the street. We're making sure that gospel is an integral part of our ministry because it cannot be all just about giving people things and not bringing the element of the gospel to what you're doing. And so Bishop's story you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss those connecting stories. So listen to me, Bishop Beckford. I was so sick. You know what I did? I took a Jamaican flu shot. Those of you know what a Jamaican flu shot is? It's white rum with some lime and some honey. I took the shot. I was hurt. I didn't want to miss the class. And I tell you, I just felt it. I'm not telling you to go drink white rum now, but that thing just revived my spirit, man, and I started sweating. And then when I came to school, I went up to Bishop and I said, Bishop, if I didn't take the rum and the lime and the honey, I would never be in class today. Bishop laughy, almost fell to the ground because he was like that human. He was like somebody you couldn't touch. Although he was that educated and that intellectual, he was somebody you could go and share a private joke as much as that with him. And he wouldn't think you're a big old sinner. That's the level of the man. And all the students in the school, they had that relationship. The people who cooked for him, they made sure they were there from 6:30, 7 o'clock. Because Bishop was coming across the bridge and he needed to get his breakfast. And he was certain to get his porridge and everything Jamaican when he came to school. We are going to miss him. The little things that students put up, we have archives and archives of his contributions to the school. And how best to do it. We are Bishop Chambers and the board over by Queens and Long Island. We're seriously talking about the scholarship, the Earl McKay scholarship that will motivate students so that when they are done with us at ACTS, they can move on to the next level where they can be enrolled in a seminary that will take it further. So we are intentional in making sure that the ACTS Bible School will never forget Bishop Earl McKay this side.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the humor, and thank you for the input in there. And I that's what biblical knowledge, understanding of the word, interpreting the word, exegeting the word, and applying the word. That's how you deal with people when you have a good biblical knowledge. You don't call everything sin and damnation and condemnation and cast them out when you have biblical knowledge. Our arrogance sometimes is because we are lack of biblical knowledge and understanding, and so we apply our theory and our perception, and so we judge people by what we think, not by biblical interpretation. So thank you for that input. Bishop McKay, I wanted to just add this into it, and I know Bishop Dr. Casimir has to go unless he's giving us another 15 minutes until there are no more 15 minutes left. So maybe it's hard to walk away from this with your good friend, right? I just know it's hard to do that, but I appreciate you being here. Bishop McKay was never one who exhibit pride. You would not know. You would not know the level of education. You would not know the level of involvement. You would not know what he has achieved and the connections that he had by him presenting himself. There are some people who feel so big about themselves they can't even talk flat. They gotta say, okay, well, wanna let that because they have to round things up because they have to show themselves on a pedestal. The humility and the selflessness is this in this man is almost incomparable. And I appreciate the man for just who he is and who he was. He was able to reach down and meet everybody at their level. That was incredible. I'm gonna come back to Bishop Hendricks. And I'm sure that Eleanor is kind of loading up because we're gonna get some of her story. Dr. Casimir, are you gonna stay one more 15 minutes?
Anything for Bishop McKay.
All right, we're done. Well,
Um,
just tell them you'll see them tomorrow. Just tell them you'll see
yes.
them tomorrow.
Bishop Beckford, could I interrupt just a little bit? I just want to say to
It's your time.
Dr.
It's your time. Go ahead,
I
Bishop.
just want to say to Dr. Casimir,
Right.
I can feel the love, my brother.
Amen.
I can feel the love.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I just thank you for that relationship that you and Bishop McKay foster.
Thank you.
And when you were just there talking, you weren't just talking. Um, I can feel the love, and thank God for you. Now, the thing that I wanted to bring out is the relational leader that Bishop McKay was.
Hmm.
Um, as I stated before, my first experience is in Albany, but then Bishop went away, pastor, and he came back to Albany. He was appointed to the church in Albany. And in that church were some people there very precious to me, my mother and my father. My father was a senior deacon, and they're individual members of that local church that are family to Bishop McKay. The Albany Church was a tight knit local church, and Bishop McKay, he served there, and relationships were established. And his children grew up with children there in the church in Albany. And, at the funeral service and arrangement, Eleanor, I call her Vicky, um, I believe she did a tremendous job. She had friends that were like family that came and
We
worked,
are family.
yes, worked together with her. And I knew how that relationship, how it is. Um, Sister McBean, a woman that we treasure. In Albany, we treasure her. And she embraced Bishop McKay and his family. The relationship is tight. The same thing, for the church in Rochester. There are individuals in Rochester, relationship established when he was pastoring, because he did pastor the church in Rochester, and he served as the district overseer for Western New York. Um, these contributions made by Bishop McKay, we say upstate and downstate,
Mm-hmm.
but all across the state, that relationship that he established with individuals, it will be forever. As you talk with Vicky, Eleanor, the relationship that she shared with her dad, and also Chris, um, you know, I oftentimes say and I observe that these servants of the Lord, Bishop McKay, along with so many others, um, have sacrificed so much, and their children have sacrificed so
Mm-hmm.
much. They move from one city to another, not because they want to move, but their parents have to move in ministry. And these children move, and in each local church or area city that they establish relationship. And there are times that they have to pull up and move on to the next area where their parents are called upon to serve. And too bad that many times in the end, instead of the church reaping the benefit of the excellency that their parents put in them, many times these children, they walk off or gone off, not so much to go and sin, but another church reap the benefit, another organization reap the benefit, because many times we do not know how to really appreciate the treasure
Mm-hmm.
that they are, that their parents put in them. And I listened to Minister Vivian Murray talk about what Bishop has deposited at the Acts Bible School, and others talk about it. But in his local church, he believes in empowering the local church, and he did that at the Bronx. I remember when Bishop Billy Murray, during his tenure, and in Bishop Murray talk about turning to the harvest. And one of the things that have to happen if we're going to reap the harvest, local churches have to be empowered. And Bishop McKay was called upon, and he submitted an article. I, I thought about it a little bit too late, or else I would try to pull that article from the White Wing, because he wrote an article. And so he's a man of, you say, relational relationships, leadership, and he had that. He did that in every local church that he has gone, and he deposited so much in the local church at the Bronx. And I'll stop there.
I just want to piggyback on that. All I keep on thinking is the three H's: the head, the heart, and the hand. He had the knowledge, he had the compassion, and he served, and you really touched on something. It wasn't easy all the time, as a child, as a mom being the first lady, because it is selfless. But one thing I could think of is when someone is or him being so passionate and at a certain point, sharing his vision, his purpose, as he shared with you, he shared with us, you can't help but support, especially when it's God centered. And the core is not self-will per se. It's greater than that. We all fall in a line. When I was saying alignment, when I was talking about earlier that we were bred, many of you shared that He taught, he loved to teach. With family, he didn't teach us in the way he taught you. Our goal, or his outlook on life for us, was to watch. He's doing it, and the expectation is you should know because you have the example. And we had to pay attention to detail. I mean, even if it was folding the programs, my brother and I had a joke that if the program is folded off center, someone is not going to receive the word because he was so detail oriented. He gave it all he had. And Bishop Hendricks mentioned, or kind of insinuated that, and I think I heard others say, sometimes it's unfortunate you don't really realize what you have until it's gone. But just sitting back and listening, and funeral listening now is just, I mean, I'm honored to be his daughter. I'm honored that we can talk and have this platform, because when I think of all the little things that were big things, I don't know how else to put it, but there was nothing that he did, nothing too small, that didn't show, or that he didn't take and help somebody. Or I mean, even like I said, the detail with the program, if he wrote a letter, he took time to write the letter. It was well thought out. If he spoke to you about something, he would always take time, listen. He was very intentional in the way he spoke. He was very intentional. But I mean, you guys were blessed, because to be honest, we didn't even receive that level of detail. We got to see it up close and personal, but he really poured everything he had out into others. And go piggybacking on Bishop Hendricks, it was frustrating as a child to see how much, someone gives and pours, and sometimes it just goes right over their head. And not trying to make a turn, but sometimes, like you say, you don't know what you got till it's gone. When I say the hand, as many times he had to do it. You can have people in place, but he did it himself. He didn't call you over and over again. If he assigned something to you, he expected it to be done. If it wasn't done, he didn't argue with you. He went and did it himself. That was shoveling. That was putting up the tent. We had tent crusades in the Bronx. It was a huge tent. If he had to find people in the neighborhood, there were a faithful few, but if he had to find people in the neighborhood, there's so many street pharmacists that help him. There's so many, homeless that helped him. There's so many people in the community just walking by, that helped him. He just did what he had to do. And just hearing how much over and over, how much he poured into others, I would say. And yes, waking up early Saturdays, that's time he wasn't with us. All I can hope and say is that it's not in vain. I really think if you didn't get it then, my prayer would be that you reflect and help somebody else. Think about all the training. You know what I mean? Don't let it go over your head and lose it. Focus on that. Help your church be a better place. Spread the word on your job. Whatever it is, whatever piece of him that he shared with you, really meditate on it. And it's the Jesus is him in him. It's not the man. But whatever he shared, it was done not only with a willing heart, but it was very intentional. It was God-led. And let it not be in vain, because I can say it was time away from family. He poured into you. He did it because he wanted to. He loved people, like he took people in like he was their family. You hear the testaments of how dear so many people hold him because he spent time. Sometimes I'm looking now and thinking, how did he do it all? Even though I saw him doing it, when you start to hear the testimonies, it's just like he lived several people's lives. I do a lot, but when you hear it over and over, how could he be a yoke fellow or a best friend to you, Dr. Cassamy, and then be the same thing to Bishop Hendricks and Sister Vivine, be there teaching for 9 years, Pastor Beckford still think of you for a class.
Yes.
Took advantage of every moment. And then still, I can say for my son, if Chris calls him, he was still there. You know, um, I don't know where I was going with that, but when I heard you, speaking, Richard Hendricks, I just thought about the yes, someone says servanthood, selflessness,
Hmm.
meekness, humility. No matter how he felt personally, he always put that aside because he always thought about Christ and how it would. I was even thinking the other day, it's the same thought, but I'm thinking of another way, given a description. Someone mentioned at the funeral, I think it was Sister Jane, that she wanted to buy him or get the church wanted to get him a fancy car. But he wouldn't do that because he didn't want to be off putting to someone in the community, or just feed into an ideology of, you're stealing the church's money.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know how
yeah.
many people saw him in the Bronx? They say the pastor that walked around the neighborhood. I was talking to someone from the church, a younger member, and he was telling me that the barbershop, many people, the pastors come in, they have the fancy car, they have security guards, they have to stand guard when they're in the barbershop getting their hair cut. And when those gentlemen left, the pastors left, they start cursing and carrying on and talking and laughing. And then someone else was like, hey, 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 we have a pastor still here. And they were like, who's the pastor? And he's been going there for years. Some of them didn't even know because he wouldn't boast. He was a community member. He lived in the community. He shared with them, like you said, he dialogues with everyone. They didn't even realize because they were like, he was so meek. He came in naturally. He walked the blocks. Some people just know him, the man that walks here and walks there. And sometimes I have dreams of him just walking. I see him walking down the block trying to, get to the church to do something or to open the door for the 44th precinct if a deaconess or someone couldn't go. Rushing through Mullally Park or running over to the precinct, helping however he could. And as he got older, I even talked to him about, retirement, and it was like the plague. He didn't want to hear that. And I had to tell him, retirement doesn't mean you have to sit down in the house. Retirement means you can dive into teaching. You can, really dive into being a community liaison, doing those things you love and not being so much in the day to day, with the church. But God had a plan, a purpose for his life, and he followed it to the T. No matter how he was pulled every which way, it wasn't, he never really complained about being tired. He never complained about how many times you called him. It just what it was. And it was a part of his purpose. And I appreciate him for being who he is. It wasn't easy. And I've had many ups and downs. And my brother and I, not understanding, he's never been to a basketball game. He's never been to, but at the same time, because he gave example and he told us what the greater purpose was, we just fell in alignment. And sometimes kicking and streaming, but we still got the bigger picture. Thank you for,
Kicking and screaming, I'm sure kicking and screaming, because sometimes it's, yeah, daddy, you have to go again. Do we have to go again? Can we just not go this time? Can you just, and I'm sure the kids didn't have the same vision, although they try to support and as you say, sometimes kicking and screaming, but still going with as a support. One of the things that I admire, and my wife would attest to that, is part of his humility, and openness, that if you he will sit you down in his office, he will take you around his church, upstairs, downstairs, in his office, and he will just slowly take you, point you to things, give you little details. He'll sit down and he'll tell you his vision and how he planned to execute it, and what he's projecting it's going to be, and where he is maybe looking for his resource to come from. Yet, another thing that I'm sure others would be able to identify, his is resourcefulness and how he's able to tap into the avenues and where resources are, because he was so involved and so connected that he could know somebody that he could talk to on certain things that may bring benefit to the church. So you can't fake that, and you can't make that out of somebody unless it's developed within them. Some things you can learn, but you can't just become who you are not. And some people are blessed to be special, and I think Bishop McKay was one of those who was blessed to be special.
And he was a great listener.
I agree to that.
He was a great
Yes.
listener, and he didn't listen and drift. He took what you said, he internalized it, he thought about it, he prayed about it. Many nights he didn't sleep a full night. He would wake up at 2 in the morning and pray, lay back down. He'll wake up at 4 in the morning. That was mostly his life. Early in the morning, he was praying, thinking about what you said, making sure, as the follow through was a key, that he can come back and drop something in your spirit, or just another thought that to provoke you to look at the bigger picture so you can draw a conclusion on your own. Um, Skillful. I think it was it's definitely God given. God
Amen.
given.
I'm coming back. Load up, Doctor Casimir. I'm coming back to you.
Yeah.
I want to ask Eleanor a question, and I haven't gotten to the mother father, the husband part of it, and I don't have Sister Ella to tell me the husband part of it. But I'm sure the daughter observed some things about husband being husband in the home. We're gonna get to that, but has he ever uh, expressed a moment of grief or sorrow or disappointment for something that did not come to fruition, or something or somebody that broke his heart?
Well, I could say one big project he did plan. They put a lot of work into um, planning to rebuild the Bronx church. He did have many plans drawn up where he wanted to have a senior center. He thought about a school, housing for the seniors, and he put a lot of years into it, committees, attorneys. Um, it's definitely, he wanted to definitely revise the space so it could better help and do better outreach for the community. Um, that was one thing I know he was really big on. He just wanted to really scale up to better serve the community. We did have summer day camp. We had so many different programs, and people wanted a school. They trusted the church, and central. A lot of people from across the street, some children that had learning disabilities or behavioral issues felt comfortable at the church. We knew how to handle, manage the children. They started to come to children church, Sunday school. So yeah, I think that's one thing that he really wanted to do and didn't get a chance to do. It just didn't pan out that way. But we thank God in all things, because who would have known where we would have been once the pandemic hit, and what would have happened, and what state we would be in. There's a lot of things that change and transpire.
And the other thing, again, as I said time and again, and I repeat, the only person who's not surprised or in shock that he's not here is the Lord, who knew his destiny. So and the man had to keep dreaming, because that's part of who he was. He kept dreaming and keep on
Yes.
looking at projects and plans and what he wants to do. Coming back growing up in Jamaica, we used to hear older people say, "Man a plan, but God a wipe out." So sometimes we have our plan, because that's what we ought to do, but we don't know what the next day holds. And God, in His wisdom, who knew that Earl McKay wouldn't be around here to oversee a project like that to the end of it. he would not maybe want him to have it begin, and then he drops out in the middle, and then it becomes a nightmare for the rest of the people who did not have the vision. So God in his wisdom, we give him glory because he knows more than we are. Eli said, "It is the Lord, let him do what seemeth him good." We are the only ones who are shocked and surprised because we didn't see it coming, but God knew from beginning and all through the way what he would allow Earl to accomplish, and then when he would say, "That's it." It doesn't make sense to us. But thank you. We're going to come back to think about the husband part. We're going to come back to you. Dr. Casimir, what's bubbling up in your heart again to tell us about your friend that has been so deeply connected?
Yeah, and before I go, I just want to say two things. I want to follow up on something that Eleanor was talking about, his retirement. One of the last conversations he and I had, we were talking about retirement. And when I told him that probably, I guess it was this year, 2022, I would be retiring, he had a good laugh at me. And then I told him something. I said, I really believe, Bishop, he called me Doc, I called him Bishop. I said, I really believe that retirement is to be enjoyed, not to be endured. He said, I got to write that down. But he wasn't thinking about retirement. And then I said to him, I'm thinking about doing it in maybe sometime in 2022. And we talked about that. But the other thing I wanted to say was, I believe that Bishop McKay understood best what kingdom building was about than a lot of people. And again, Eleanor spoke about the tent meetings that he had. When he first started, he wanted the community. It didn't matter what denomination you were, he wanted everybody, the community, to come to hear the word of God. And then he wanted to find some of the pastors in the community to come. So he had a couple of Baptist brothers preaching. He had a couple of Adventist guys preaching, Church of God of Prophecy. And he just, because it was community, and what all Bishop McKay wanted was to build the kingdom of God.
Amen.
The kingdom of God it's like a net that you throw into the sea and you catch all kinds of fish. He understood that. And so when he got the spot and he started the meetings, a number of us from the community were present, not just to preach, but we came, and he had a number of people from the community, and it was extremely successful because what it was about was, in the summertime, building up the kingdom of God, and he did it well.
And we want to thank St. Simeon. That was another big church in the area for even allowing that partnership and allowing him to use the lot. Another denomination, right there in the neighborhood that partnered and worked. I mean, to this day, they've been so gracious, even allowing us to use the lot for parking or health fairs, whatever we need it for.
Amen. Who else want to raise your hand? Who wants to say something next? Raise your hand. We're gonna come back to Eleanor and guess about some of the husbandman in the house. All right. But since that we're talking about ministering like Christ and becoming like Christ, I have a huge program coming up next week, Wednesday night. I just want to create and highlight. So hang in there and listen this. This is what next week Wednesday is gonna be like.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? You can't afford to miss this timely panel discussion. Changing the mindset, ministering like Christ, leaving none behind. It will be one like no other on Let's Talk with the Doc. Join Bishop Adrian Varlock, Bishop Clayton Martin, Bishop Ishmael Charles, Prophetess Joycelyn Barnett, Bishop Leroy Greenaway, Sister Darlene Carty, Bishop Roy Notice, Bishop Levi Clark, and Bishop Anthony Campbell. Live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. February 2nd, 8 p.m. New York time. Mark your calendar. Don't miss it. It will be unforgettable.
Indeed, indeed. And that next week we're going to be talking about how to minister like Christ, changing the mindset, leaving none behind. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge next week. So just mark your calendars, as the sister said. This is going to be unforgettable. I just thought I'd drop this in there because we are talking about the level of ministry Bishop Earl McKay has done in his ministry life, leaving none behind. I heard Sister Eleanor talks about, the less fortunate. Bring them in, minister to them, just bring them off. Let them feel some warmth in the house of God. Let it be like a city of refuge. Let them find comfort there. Take away the pride and the selfishness. What a man. What a man. I didn't live a lot of my life with him, but the moments that we met and the little interactions that we've had, it's memorable. Memorable for me. Memorable for me. All right. So let's come now to my friends. I'm talking. Well, you know what we're talking about today. Today is actually Bishop McKay's birthday.
Yeah.
We're celebrating his birthday in this conversation, and I don't know who's going to sing happy birthday for him later on. I don't know who's going to sing. I should have had a lineup somewhere that we sing happy birthday, but maybe somebody want to say I got a voice and maybe I sing. I don't know, Bishop. Dr. Casimir. I know Adventists are pretty good at singing a cappella. I don't know if that's one of your giftedness, but
I have to run now, so I can't sing.
oh, you can. Oh, you have
But
to.
it was so good being with this August group, and all I want to say is let's keep Bishop McKay's legacy forward. He had a rich, wonderful legacy, and anything to do to keep his legacy moving forward and to remind others of the man, Bishop Earl McKay. I am for it. Let me know if there's anything I can do, because Bishop McKay was my brother.
God bless you.
Amen.
And
Amen.
we'll be in touch.
God
We'll
bless
be
you.
in touch. I do have something that we did discuss when we were talking about retirement. It's been some years. So I talked to my mother about it. So I'll be moving forward with that. So we'll be in touch.
I appreciate all of you. God
Thank
bless
you.
you all.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
God bless you,
Sister.
Doc.
All right. God
You've
bless
been
you.
a great contribution to this
Yes.
gathering. It makes a difference, and we really needed to hear your voice in it. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it for you.
And it
making
all
the
came
time.
from the heart. It
I,
all
I,
came from the
I
heart.
felt it.
Yes.
I felt it. I
And
felt it, and that's why my bishop responded to it, because he felt it likewise.
Mhm.
Can know when somebody is pretending and trying to be elaborate and trying to impress you. We know when people are coming up with nice words to try to impress you, but we know when their hearts, when we can feel the heart, and we felt your heart. And thank you. And I hope that somewhere along the line you can find some more friendship with the Church of God of Prophecy. Although I'm not in the Bronx, but stay.
I got Bishop Martin, I got Bishop Ball, I got Eleanor, I got Lady McKay, I got my folk.
So you're telling me you have enough. You don't want me.
No.
I'll be the go in between. I'll be the
That's
go.
true.
Okay, all right, all
That's
right,
part of the legacy he left. He left me with some other folk in the
all right,
Bronx, so
all right.
we're good.
Well,
God bless you all.
God bless you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
bless you.
Thank you for spending
Thank
twice
you
as
all.
much a time as you plan to.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. God bless
All
you.
right.
All
God
right,
bless you.
everybody. All right, so you can leave. Okay, he's gone. So here we are now. All right, and now there is 4.
Yeah. Can I say something that's
Yes.
just there? I look at how we minister, and I look at what Bishop McKay did while we were going through some of those classes in Acts Bible School. It was not just about theory, but together with Dr. Moraes, Reverend Sharia Hall, we came up with a mentorship program where after the theory is done, we would release our students into local churches to observe. And that was so beautiful. And they would come back with their observation. These were like young ministers that we wanted to see, to put on a different perspective, put on a different lens when they go into the local church. Because sometimes when you're in the picture, and right there in the frame, you can't see what's happening. So we took them out of the picture and they went to different local churches to observe and to bring back. And that was such a rewarding experience where the church was concerned. We planned, as you said, he's a community person. I remember us coming together to impact a community. Not with everything that he taught us, we had to have all the different segments, and then we surrounded the St. Albans community. And he came and he walked around and he observed to make sure students were doing exactly what they were taught. I looked at that and I said, some people just in it to just teach and move on, but he wanted to make sure that they really get it, that students were getting it. He wanted to make sure that the practical was being done to the perfection, to the very T. And I really respect him. We're going to miss him. I mean, maybe this is the last time you're going to hear my voice, because this is really helping me on this program. This is really helping me to process. It was very difficult for me to come on, but by the time we get talking, oh my God, I'm happy I came on. I'm happy I came on. I got one last text that he shared with me, and I want to make sure before you go, give me a chance to just echo his voice one last time, what he said to me. And that was the last text, the last time I heard from him.
That's fine. You'll have another chance. You'll have another chance. All right. So now there are four of us, and so it boiled down to one voice is absent, so the other voice is gonna say a little bit more. Than so we coming to Eleanor, the daughter, the precious only daughter of the man that is left behind, to carry on his legacy to a certain extent as much as she can. A man, the lady who knew a lot of his details because she was his the pen of the ready writer in many in many areas, right? So she knew the details of his transcripts and all of that stuff. So she processed them and make sure they were the fonts and the format were in order and all of that stuff. So if you do that, they say, if you speak about something, you'll remember it to a certain level, but if you write it down, you remember a lot more about it because you've written it down, and just the processing of writing helps you to digest more of the thing. So I'm sure you have a lot of what he presented already embedded into your heart and mind, and we want to thank you for your contribution to his ministry. And who am I to come to tell you thanks? I'm sure he has told you that time and time again, but from an outside perspective, I'm just saying, that is just beautiful to have your daughter to be such a contributor to your ministry. Tell us a little bit about him being husband in the house.
What can I
Are you
say?
me, my man, I know she loved her man, she was like, yeah, I know exactly. Trust me, I know that. And she would tell you that in as level a language as she wants.
She's eloquent.
Yeah.
As much as he was her covering, she was definitely his covering, and that's what I can say about that. Um, they met each other, as Bishop Hendricks shared. They met each other in the streets of Brooklyn, or the church in Brooklyn, Tompkins Avenue. Bishop Barnes, I believe my mother preached the first Sunday of the year and shared that she wanted to be a nun and he wanted to be like Paul, but the Lord brought them together. Two people basically that just were committed. They're willing to commit everything to serve the Lord. And being youth leaders together, getting married, being youth leaders together, traveling together, going on a mission field together, Bermuda, Rochester, Albany, Jerusalem Avenue, just coming down the pike. I mean, I don't know any other tighter bond. I don't know any. They've been through it together, starving, hungry. He's in Bermuda. They said when they went, he was sparing for fish.
Wow.
Going in the ocean and sparing for fish. I mean, I can say a lot of, people today, who's going to stick, these women these days, who's going to stick through that? Being pregnant on the mission field and, not having the food, riding it out, sleeping in a, I know when we came to Albany, the camp that we had, at times they alternated with the Clarks sleeping in the trailer, nowadays pastors, they have to have this, that, and the third, before they even come, but when they were asked, and I would say not just him, when they were asked, because if she wasn't, backing him and supporting him, he couldn't do all that he did.
Mm.
You know, if your wife is complaining and saying not to go to the Acts Bible Institute in the morning, and he, you know, was really living hell on earth, at home just to do what he had to do as much as he was out,
Mhm.
he wouldn't be the man he is today. So
Mhm.
I think they had a definitely a mutual respect. They had a thirst for God, for the work. They are missionaries. They didn't, even though my mother would always say, she always says she didn't want a broke man. Her father took care of her. They both were committed to Christ. And wherever that took them, wherever they were on the journey together. And that's the best way to, describe their marriage. And that was home. That was, my brother always used to say, when we got older, that, if it wasn't for Ma, he doesn't know where we would be, because his calling, he went to school, she supported it. When we were at Jerusalem Avenue and we didn't have insurance, she got a job to make sure that gave insurance to cover us. They were each other's balance. You cannot have such greatness from a man if he doesn't have a supportive backing. It just does not happen. There would be no Bishop McKay that you know today if it wasn't for her. And there's a lot of people separate it, and a lot of people look at the man and they separate the family. They don't even respect the family. But you can't have one without another. Much sacrifice. She always talks to people and tells them, live off of what your husband makes,
Mm.
because you need balance. You have to take care of the children. You need balance. I could even say in their relationship, my father, when he got saved, I remember Grace Thrillers, they had the heavy tunes, and he was like, save, save. If it was reggae, rock steady, it gave him flashbacks because he used to party. So it's like, no,
Really?
it was strict. And my mother was more, oh Lord, she
Hold
likes
a
to
second.
dance
Hold a second. Your father used to party?
before he knew the Lord.
I know, no, I know that, but I don't recall that I see party in him. I saw one or two little dance with him and his wife, but she was kind of running the show,
He was
So,
more of a rock steady person. He
oh,
take it
that's
easy,
steady.
nice and
All
slow.
right, all right, all right,
But
all right.
but
Okay,
he want no parts of that. Anything that but she brought balance. She showed you how to dance and praise God,
yeah,
and be
yeah.
free spirited. When everyone was at the beach, after church, after you do all your church business and you want to go to the beach, she's wearing her bathing suit, and everyone's wearing shorts, just they had balance. I mean, she was respectable, but
Right,
she
right.
taught they both, they were youth leaders. They knew how to have fun. They knew how to get the work done, but make it enjoyable, and they balanced each other. When he was serious, she was, the joke, the one giving jokes. And when she
Hmm.
was, vice versa. And
Yeah.
sometimes they gave jokes. I could say, even as a child, I can travel anywhere with them because, they know how a time and place for everything. And she helped him with that. As he helped her have patience, she helped him relax and have a good time.
All right, all right. I like that. I like that. That's a good combination. Um, so he helps sometimes to calm her down, and she sometimes build him up. So they can get strike somewhere in the middle. Nice, nice. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Again, we are celebrating and reflecting on the life of our brother that has just not too long ago gone home with the Lord to the Lord, and leave us with broken hearts. And but his heart is not broken, neither is God's heart broken. But the rest of us are struggling with broken heart. And I'm an outside brother and friend, and I can only imagine what is happening on the inside with the family. And so I'm just filled with joy that we could share this moment with the family, with Eleanor. And kudos to your brother for developing himself, and could be is dad's what the term I want to use, is dad's protege. He could be, hey, is dad's call on guy, is next in line, and hey, use me or send me on, who will go. Hey, dad, I'll go because I'm ready. Or yeah, you can trust him because he's developed himself. That is just really, really good. And so and
Definitely.
so and so things are in good hand. I'm happy to hear that. Things are in good hand. Congratulations to him, and shout out to you, Sister Ella. And we wish that we had your face and here to hear your mouth lashing in at us too. But we understand. We understand. And we understand. And we are lifting you up in our prayers and our thoughts. And may God give you the strength that you need to keep on going. And may He just guide your feet and order your steps, and just give you the strength that you need to keep on pulling through these moments, because we outside could never even fathom what it must be like for you in this moment when your husband was just like young, strong, fresh, and to have this come in the middle of everything. It's amazing. Bishop.
Yes, I'm sitting here, and we're talking about a man, a honorable man, a man of dignity and poise, a man that was down to earth, could laugh, and but I'm also, as I reflect, I'm also looking at the root of this man, where he's coming from, the people that have influenced his life,
Mhm.
even as a young man, um, when he just started off in ministry. We talk about his humility, and there's a number of things that we would see in him. But then, as I sat here and I reflect upon men like Bishop Barnes, who was his first pastor, a highly respected man in this region, Bishop Royal, the man that he succeeded
Mhm.
at the Bronx Church, Bishop Ferguson, a man that have served on the same board that he have served on in earlier years. These great leaders, Bishop Stanley Knight, um, Bishop Boone, these men that have influenced his life, Bishop Rufus Rogers,
Bishop
uh,
Trogdon.
Bishop Chognans, yes, and Bishop E.L. Jones. But with Bishop Rogers, Bishop Rogers was such a teacher. And as he walked with Bishop McKay, I honestly thought that Bishop Rogers was grooming Bishop McKay to one day be the overseer for this region.
Mhm.
Um, he has worked that close with all of the leaders that he has had. I don't know of one that he didn't work well with, and he worked on their team. Our current overseer, Bishop Leroy Greenaway, he worked well with him. The friendship that I've seen there, and not only with Bishop Greenaway, but Lady Greenaway. I seen that. Um, Lady McKay is a strong woman. She is a strong woman, Lady Ella McKay, um, and her daughter, Eleanor.
Yeah, we can
These
see it,
are
right?
two strong women that Bishop McKay have had the privilege to live with them, walk with them, help train, and they, in likewise, have helped train him. Um, One of the things that I really respect about Bishop McKay, um, I remember one time, and I believe Minister Vivian Murray remember this, when in our region it was questionable whether or not we're going to have a youth camp. And I say to Minister Vivian, we are going to have youth camp. We're going to have youth camp, and I'm talking about regional youth camp. Well, that's kind of, you know, risky because we had an overseer and we have a regional youth ministry director
Mhm.
um, at the time, but he was under fire. Um, Dr. Maurice Castle. He was under fire at that time. It was difficult time for Brother Maurice. Um, and I said that we're going to have camp. And so we collaborated, Minister Murray and I, and we said we're going to do it. And so we planned to have youth camp. It's going to happen. It's going to right out of our local church. Um, we're not challenging the region, but we've invested our lives in camp. And there's no way that I was going to sit back and see us not have camp. So we went ahead and we planned camp. And when the word got out, I know there was a lot of rumbling going on, but Bishop McKay called me and he inquired. He wanted to know um, what was going on, what was my vision, what was I planning, and I told him, I let him know that, look, you know, we're just going to have camp because we were uncertain whether or not we're going to have camp. There was talk about not having enough money to finance camp. And I said that we as a local church, we're going to have camp. But he picked up the phone and he called me, and I appreciate that. And we were able to talk, and he understood my motive, my purpose. It wasn't to take over the region camp, it was just to ensure that our kids have camp that year. And I'll never forget Bishop McKay for that because of everyone in the region. He is the only one to pick up the phone and get clarity from me. That was the kind of man that he was. When when I went to Hempstead Church to pastor that church, um, moving, making the transition from Buffalo to Long Island, I had no place to go. You understand? You get appointed and then you go to the city and try to find where you're going to live. And he and his wife opened their doors to us. And we were able to live there for a short time before we found our apartment. Um, when I was having some problems in my marriage, um, he and Sister um, Ella, they came and they sat with my wife and I. We were friends like that, and they were able to talk with us, to counsel with us. That I will never forget. I'll never forget him for that. Later on, when I'm teaching and getting into the word, and there would be questions that I would look at when I look at the Bible from a critical angle. Um, the one person I could pick up the phone and call and present the scripture to him and present my view to him, he would be that sounding board. And he was able, as Sister Vivian mentioned, you know, if you don't have the answer, he's going to try to get the answer. But there are times when we're talking, he said, I never look at it from that angle. And we would talk, and a conversation that was only be for 5 minutes would last for like an hour. And we always end up praying for each other. I will miss my brother. Already, there are things that I'm teaching, and I knew if he was around, I would have picked up the phone and called him already. I will miss that. I will miss that. But I'm grateful and I'm thankful that, you know, He left a strong wife and his strong children. And I thank God for that. And Eleanor, Vicky, I love you. Love Chris.
We
Love
love
Sister.
you too.
And we're going to journey together. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. There was nothing better than having you. As a matter of fact, I was telling him, Vicky, Eleanor, when we decided that we were gonna have this meeting, this program, and we were contemplating. One of the first persons who came into my mind, other than the family, was Bishop Hendricks. And I thought, just by listening to him at the funeral, I'm saying, boy, he would have been good if we could get him on this program for him to share his own experience. And so when I communicated, and you said to me before I even said anything, you said, I spoke to Bishop Hendricks. I'm saying, wow, so we are thinking the same way. So we're thinking the same way. So it was meant for you to be part of this, and thank you for your contribution. And again, God in His wisdom knows everything, but from a human perspective, from a human standpoint, from a limited ability, from a finite mind, and from the emotions and the sense of loss and grief and shock, I'm thinking, God, why do people like these with so much to offer, why did they have to, why do they have to go, and can't just, and if he could have found somebody and say, okay, the Lord calls me home and I have all this, right, and I'm gonna have to open up your heart and your whatever and just deposit it into you so you can continue it. Paul said to Timothy, the thing that you have heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit to faithful men who are able. I would to God, and I know it's just my foolish thinking, that men like these could have left other, and maybe we have to say, you know what, he left it because he has left it in pieces, in portions, in so many people, he has left it in them, and it continues. But it would have been so fascinating if he was able to say, I'm pouring this into you and you're going to continue all that I have started. We know that is not practical, but boy, it would have been nice. I remember when Bill McKinley died. I'm saying, oh my, maybe you don't know who that is, but I'm just saying, oh my God, that man impacted my life more than anybody that I have ever known. And the man died early. I said, oh no, God, people like these, why do they have to die? I remember when I was a young man, maybe 40 years ago, one man, when box milk just came into Jamaica, box milk, you have the dairy farmers and you have the box milk, the cow milk in the box. And I remember this gentleman drank a box, the pint box of milk. And when he drank the milk, he said, boy, the people who make this shouldn't die. So, so I say that to say this: men like Earl McKay shouldn't die, but God knows best. God knows.
Well, I could add to that briefly, and I know Sister Vivian wants to read the text, but just to confirm, he did. He did leave it behind. I can say more than any other time, he was teaching at the Acts Bible Institute consistently. He was teaching and forming meetings with the leadership at the Bronx church for years. And then once COVID happened, he had weekly meetings with, lay deacons, with, the lay ministers weekly, teaching them, different tips on how to preach, the context. He had meetings, weekly meetings with ministers in the district. He was, as my mother said, like, you really left, like, are you really gone? Did you can't believe, but actually, if you look back, if you listen, so many people talked about his last time he preached at convention. He preached his
Oh
heart
yeah.
out.
Oh Lord have mercy.
I
Yes.
wasn't there and I was watching it. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, it's a heavy word. But all my life, I haven't seen him consistently teach in this way at any other point in his life. So that's what I was trying to say earlier, that he did leave a piece. He
Mhm,
broke it down as much as he could break it down
mhm,
consistently. He gave the one on one time over and over and over again. If
mhm.
you didn't get it, you're never going to get it.
Never gonna
You,
get.
you, you get what I mean? You have to take the time, and because, he tried. He fulfilled, well, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say tried. He fulfilled his purpose.
I
God led him to do. If you didn't get it, you missed the mark. And sometimes I just tell you, you have to reflect. I reflect on conversations. I reflect. Only thing I could say is thanks be to God. In the COVID time, I went through therapy. I processed our relationship. I think because I valued it so much. And though sometimes the dynamics of the relationship have to change, I always say, I love you.
mm,
I cherish you as my father, regardless of your shortcomings. I don't feel any regret because I handled my personal issues, being a child of ministry, and see the man and see him as my
Mm-hmm.
father and accept your limitations, maneuvered or adjusted myself to make sure I can appreciate who he is and still tell him I love him wholeheartedly because I lived, watching the teaching, didn't get it the same way as you. I can say I not only can survive, I operate at my job. Some of them have watched, read from the website and like, you're a little bit like your father, the detail, and they don't even know him. It's in me. And all I can do is, you know, go back to that source. Well, I hear the voice in my head, Vicky, do that, or whatever. It's in me, and it's in all of us, and it's God led. It was pure. It's God led. So it's not like I know some people say it's not about following the man. It's the fact that the Christ that was in him, the way he committed and dedicated his life. We are supposed to be examples. People should see us and see Christ, in us. And you got the example. You just have to reflect, think back sometimes on what he said, what was the purpose, even his thought process he tried to share. You know, I'll leave it
right.
there.
I'm going to, and we're going to come back and do a wrap up on that, and do a wrap up. But I am so appreciative that we were able to do this program. And I'm thinking, um, just lost my train of thought. But yes, looking back at the convention, the regional convention, and one of my thought that I've said to people that the Lord has placed in my heart, and I keep repeating every now and then to most of my guests on my program, is that one of these days God will show you the mystery of your history, and as the pieces unfold, you'll begin to see when it becomes tangible and it becomes touchable. You'll be able to look back and see why were all these pieces that I couldn't understand, looking at them now. Bishop McKay maybe wasn't able to tell us in details as he compiled the pieces of his history, but we saw it to a certain extent as it unfolded. I've known the man for since I came to New York, and that's maybe 26, 27 years, and I have listened him speak over and over and over again in many times. I have never, I can't recall hearing the man as powerful as he was, as emotionally connected to his presentation as he has ever been, like he was in this regional convention. I can't recall. And I'm saying, wow, Mackey is up to something in this convention. This is like a new Mackey. Oh, he was always cool, not highly emotional, but boy, this time he was so into it. And I missed the ministers conference up in Hartford because of the illness of my father-in-law, and we were in Florida and we couldn't be there. And I heard. that was almost a continuation of the convention. So it brings me to say we are the only ones who are surprised. But when you look back at how he was like, finishing the last furlong, the last furlong, so to speak, you can say, boy, there must have been something in here that he and God is dealing with, and for the rest of us had no clue that God was saying, wrap it up on a, like God was saying, finish on a high note, McKay, finish on a high note. And boy, did he finish on a high note. That's my piece on the wrap up. So we're gonna give everybody a time to go. Before we want you to wrap up on a reflection on his birthday, because it is birthday celebration, so we can't leave that out. So I hope we'll get that little piece in there. And thanks to all of our friends who are watching, his family and friends who are watching. And by the way, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's a good time to do it. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, I'm also taking ministry to TikTok. So at ORB Ministries, you'll find me on TikTok at ORB Ministries. Make sure you follow me on TikTok for the short clips of ORB Ministries. All right, we're talking about Bishop Earl McKay, a man that I will never forget. I just feel he's gone too soon. As Dr. Casimir says, I still feel like a little piece of me is gone with the man, because I'm not able to relate to him in the same way like I used to. So I think there's a missing piece of me that's gone with him. Sister Vivian, you got the text.
Yes. What a really, really reflective evening this has been. January born like myself. Oh my God, I'm so inspired. I'm so inspired by my January friend who left us, but the work will go on. Vicky, let me tell you, I am determined more than ever to make sure that the name Earl W. McKay will not be forgotten in our school. Students will benefit from it, from the scholarship that we're going to launch for years to come. Because he was all about education. He was all about seeing students go further, doing more. And we are going to, by the help of God and with contributions from friends and past students, we're going to make that happen, so that students who want to go to seminary will go to seminary. So this was our last conversation after I told him he was teaching this class. This class is cross-cultural missions and evangelism, and he went wild. He loved that because that was right up his street. And he said to me, I said, Bishop, this is my text I'm reading. You are sowing some serious seeds into the future of the kingdom. I am praying for you. And his last words to me were, kind of you to say, dear minister, very encouraging. Thanks so much. By the way, you're an awesome, inspirational leader we follow. That was my affirmation that the Lord lifted me through the words of this powerful man. And I'll remember that for always.
Amen.
It has humbled me in so many ways. And those are my few words for the night.
God bless you. God bless you. And God bless the ministry. And God bless the scholarship. And God bless the Acts ministry as it helps continue to develop others. We will miss that man. I've never been to the Acts thing. I've heard a lot about it, but I've never been there. But I've heard from others his contribution, and to know that he was so intimately connected, and his contribution has been so consistent for the duration of the existence until he's gone home to be with the Lord. Then that is priceless. We're wrapping up. Bishop, you got any wrap up, or you wrap already?
My last conversation with Bishop was when he returned from down south. He went down for a conference, and he was sharing with me. I had called him, and he told me that he just came back. We were talking. He sounded a little bit tired, but he had just came back from Jamaica, and he went to this conference. So he was sharing the conference with me. He was excited about it. And I says, I was so, he got so excited about it. It excites me. And I said to him, man, I wish you had let me know. I could have gone with you.
Mm,
And he says, well, it wasn't an advanced planning,
mm.
that it was recent. And he went. And I talked with him. And the last thing I said to him, I said, my brother, I think I said, Bishop, you remind me about, one of our president, as he was talking about, in diplomacy, say, walk soft and carry a big stick. And I say, you remind me of such. That big stick is against the devil.
Mm,
He walks soft. He was a man, you could say he was humble. But when it comes to the enemy, he
mm.
was no friend of the enemy. And he had a big stick. And wherever the enemy would push up his head, he would use that stick. He used that stick against the enemy by, just knocking out a lot of ignorance that he would see around him. He did it dramatically. Amen. He would teach you something, and you would think about it after, and then you'd say, oh, yes. So the life that he lived, it's before us, it's a legacy. And again, I want to thank God for his children.
Amen.
Um, God bless you all.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I didn't get a chance like you did to get to know them. I would have passed them and didn't know them, but at some point, because I'm not in the Bronx and the Long Island thing, so I'm not as closely connected. But
Mhm.
but listening now, to God be the glory for what He deposited in them directly and indirectly, what they have gleaned from observing, and what especially Eleanor, for what I know, and brother, what's your brother name?
Christopher. Mhm.
Christopher,
Chris.
and
Mhm.
your son, and you have a son named Chris.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's a Chris and a Christopher. All right. So you just trying to keep it in the family. Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. All right. That's a good follow up too. Good
Mhm.
example of a brother. That means you say, if I could name my son, like my
Mhm.
brother next to it, then that means there's some real connection that you want to continue on and something like that. So kudos to them. But kudos to him for the steps that he has taken to develop himself into ministry, to the point that his father had confidence in him.
Yes.
Listen, to the level of where Bishop McKay was, and if he had the confidence in his son to say, "Go fit in for me," then that means his son has accomplished a lot. Kudos
Yes.
to you. Congratulations. You can't fail now. You can't walk back. Now you have to double up like Jonah to start to tap into everything you can find of your father to become at your best, because the eyes of the rest will be looking at you. And I know they're going to judge you and assess you, but don't let that bother you. Just be yourself and be the best you can. Sister Ella, blessings to you be multiplied, added strength from God's throne of grace. May He lift you up and all, hold you in His arms, and give you the needed grace. Peter talks about manifold or diverse temptations, but he also talks about manifolds or diverse grace. That means in everything, God has a different portion of grace for everything that you experience. Sometimes we think that God just have one little piece of grace or one little bun, but God has manifold grace, as Peter says. That means in everything there is grace for that. I use an example one time about Visine. They used to advertise Visine. They said, itchy eyes, there's Visine for that. Red eyes, there is Visine for that. Watery eyes, there is Visine
Mhm.
for that. And I'm just saying, just like everything, suffering, grief, loss, pain, sicknesses, in everything, there is grace for that. And God, who is the giver and the sustainer of grace, knows exactly the proportion and the type of grace to apply as the need demands it. And He will do that for you. And He has you in His arms. All right, that's my piece. Eleanor, we're at your disposal now to give us your wrap up and to remember your father's birthday on this.
Okay, so the wrap up, since everyone shared um, the last conversation was right before they put him on the vent machine. And it wasn't even, well, it was a conversation, but he already had restricted, he couldn't speak where I could understand. But they were calling me to say, get your mother, try to come here. But he made me his proxy. And I was saying, they said he's probably going to try to talk, but I'm not going to be able to understand what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And, I work in healthcare. So once I hear proxy, I'm like, it's coming, like this can go either way. And, I said, Dar, I can't hear you. I call him Dar, but I love you. And he's shaking his head. He said, I could hear him like trying to say, I know you love me. I said, I'm going to fight any way I can for you. And he kept talking, and I'm trying to say, he's trying to talk, and I'm telling him, don't talk. But I guess I keep on hearing that because I couldn't hear what he was saying. But at the same time, it speaks volume. Sometimes, you yearn for, even though you feel, you want your parents' approval, no matter how old you get.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it meant everything to me. And though it was heartbreaking the way everything turned out, it was the stamp of approval. Even if we bumped heads and I fought with him every which way, it was a stamp of approval. And I knew he knew what I was doing. And I know he trusted me with everything. But for that to be the final thing, to put my mother's there, she was always going to support. But for you to say, my life is in your hands, I will never forget that. Hence why I'm here today. Hence why I appreciate you so much being here. Hence why we celebrate him on his birthday today. Couldn't let this moment go by. And as I always told him, no matter what, I love you, Dar. Love you, I do, more than you ever know. It's for sure. You can always count on my love forevermore. And it's definitely a happy birthday to you. And I appreciate you for sharing in this moment. It means a lot to me. And I appreciate each and every one of you all.
Oh, that is so sweet. That is so sweet. Listen, the spirit and the soul of the man never dies. And although the body goes back to the clay, the spirit lives on. And just like the rich man could communicate, as Jesus said, from Hades, then we know somewhere in outer space, the spirits connect of the man is hearing and rejoicing somewhere, listening to this comment. And by the way, Earl, as you sit right next to my head, right there, my friend, as I place you there as a marker behind my head, you meant a lot to me. You meant a lot to me. You meant a lot to me. And I will never forget that phone call you made. Out of the blue, you called me. And that has impacted my life. That one phone call has impacted my life in a way that I never saw coming. I never saw it coming. Never imagined it, but it happened. And I wish, I wish I had gotten the chance to sit down and hear your story by yourself. But God knows how He wanted this story to be told. He wanted to be this way, that others can express themselves, how you have impacted their lives. And so I want to thank you for being a brother. Thank you for your contribution to the kingdom. Thank you for the lives that you have impacted. Thank you for impacting my life in the way that you have. And it will continue into many generations. God bless your soul and your spirit as you listen to us. And happy birthday to you. You got five on me. You got five on me, my friend, but that's all right. I'm still trying to see if I can catch up where you left off. Okay, so peace and blessings be multiplied unto you. All right, forever in my heart. Happy birthday, Earl. Happy birthday, my friend. Thanks, my brothers and sisters, for listening. Anybody want to say anything as we go? Is that it? I don't want to leave anybody saying anything, not saying anything. Is that it?
I just want to say to Vicky, enough respect. Enough respect.
Thank you.
Enough respect. Enough respect. And you know what? There's something special, and I think my connection with Vicky came out of because I never had a communication, but we have communicated like we really been really friends and connected for years. It's amazing what 1 month has done in the relationship between Vicky and myself. And I think just by me telling her after she called me to see if I would do a tribute for her dad, and we communicated, and just for me telling her that, by the way, he was supposed to be on my program on the 15th, and she checked his phone. She saw that in the phone, but didn't know what he was supposed to be on the date. And so that opened up the conversation for both of us, and we almost become, well, kind of become friends like that, and we'll never be strangers anymore because
Mm.
now he has left us connected. And God bless you. I appreciate you even wanting to do this. And as I said in the beginning, I'm sure it will be a benefit to you, and you'll get a chance to go back and watch this and relive it and look at yourself and hear what the rest of us said about your dad, and just feel more proud of him.
Thank you. Blessings.
God bless you, everybody. Again, we will see you next week. And my friend, you stay right there, okay? You stay right there. When I get offline, we just want to say goodbye offline. All right. So you stay right there. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this again for next week, Wednesday night, because it's gonna be so important for everybody who is watching now to tell your friends that something big is coming up next week. So watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? You cannot afford to miss this timely panel discussion. Changing the mindset, ministering like Christ, leaving none behind. It will be one like no other on Let's Talk with the Doc. Join Bishop Adrian Varlock, Bishop Clayton Martin, Bishop Ishmael Charles, Prophetess Joycelyn Barnett, Bishop Leroy Greenaway, Sister Darlene Carty, Bishop Roy Notice, Bishop Levi Clark, and Bishop Anthony Campbell. Live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. February 2nd, 8 p.m. New York time. Mark your calendar. Don't miss it. It will be unforgettable.
And indeed, that's what it will be. Unforgettable. And by the way, if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's time to do it. Follow me on TikTok. We're taking ministry anywhere we can get it. So we'll get little brief clips, and we're going to say that the kingdom is still alive, and Jesus still saves, and he heals, and he delivers, and he set free. And you don't have to stay bound because freedom has come. All right. So follow me and let's do ministry together. Until next time, this was a special Thursday edition because it's on my friend's birthday, and I couldn't, even if I was creeping or crawling, I would respond to Eleanor for this one. That's how important it was to me. Peace be unto you. Until next time, I see you on Let's Talk with the Doc. Stay there, my friends. I'll come right back and we'll talk offline.
Well, thank you for checking in on ORB Ministries. I trust that you will share with your friends, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, and stay tuned because you never know what's next or who will join the conversation.